Good morning, beloveds. Good morning. Welcome. I have a reading for you from our book of the month, The Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. I am beginning on page 36, for those of you who are following along. That was a joke. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Let us begin by considering what the promise in this beatitude is. It is nothing less than to see God. Now we know, of course, that God has no corporeal form, and therefore there is no question of seeing God in the ordinary physical sense, in the way that one might see a human being or an object. If one could see God in this way, God would have to be limited, and therefore not God. To see, in the sense referred to here, signifies spiritual perception. And spiritual perception means just that capacity to apprehend the true nature of being. Heaven is the awareness of the presence of God. And heaven is infinite. But our mental habit leads us to mold our experience into 3 dimensions only. Heaven is the realm of spirit, substance, without age or discord or decay, a realm of eternal good, and yet, to our distorted human vision, everything is aging, decaying, wearing out, getting born only to die, blossoming only to fade. We are very much in the position of a colorblind man in a beautiful flower garden. All around him are glorious colors, but he is quite unaware of them and sees only blacks, whites, and grays. To see God is to apprehend truth as it really is, and this is infinite freedom and perfect bliss. I'm going to read through our affirmation once, and then I'll ask you to stand and join me. Heaven is all around me, and I easily perceive the true nature of things. I see with spiritual vision, my spiritual eyes wide open to eternal truth. I see God in everything, everyone, every circumstance, every situation, the pure nature of spirit expressing with clarity and purpose. I am grateful for my spiritual vision. Please stand and declare with me. With conviction. Heaven is all around me, and I easily perceive the true nature of things. I see with spiritual vision, my spiritual eyes wide open to eternal truth. I see God in everything, everyone, every circumstance, every situation. The pure nature of spirit expressing with clarity and purpose. I am grateful for my spiritual vision. Like, what's the most important line in that whole song is, why can't I? Why can't I? I heard that at the, oh, why can't I? If little bluebirds can fly, why can't, of course I can. Nothing is impossible to God. And as I align myself more fully with that nature, as I practice my innate godness, I express that more fully in the world. The only reason I can't is if I think I can't. What? Yes, it's true. And today we're talking about our spiritual vision. The beatitude that we are talking about today is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall see God. Now, we've been talking about the Beatitudes. This is week 6 of talking about the Beatitudes, and we're calling them blissitudes. See, these are the behaviors and the qualities that if we cultivate them in our lives, we can have an experience of greater bliss. Who wants more bliss? I do too. I want to have an experience of greater bliss, a greater knowingness of the infinite spirit of all life as me. And if you remember, each beatitude is comprised of 2 parts. The characteristic, the pure in spirit, for example, and the promise. They shall see God. So today the characteristic is being pure in spirit, and the promise is if we can be pure in spirit, we shall see God. That's kind of exciting. That makes me want to be real pure in spirit because I want to know more about God. I want to see God. So what does it mean to be pure in spirit? Well, the dictionary says that to be free of anything inferior, contaminating, or inappropriate. Dang, sometimes I think I'm awfully inferior. Sometimes I feel kind of contaminated and like I don't fit in, and sometimes I'm even kind of a little bit inappropriate. Dang. And then I looked at definition 2, clear and true. Clear and true. To be pure is to be free of anything inferior and to be clear and true. That's a great little lesson in our teaching right there, isn't it? Are we going to focus on what we don't want, inferior, contaminating, inappropriate, or are we going to focus on what we do want? We want to be clear and true. And in this case, we actually want to be clear and true to something. Clear about something and true to something. God. If we are clear and true, we shall see God. Well, what does it mean when we are talking about being pure in heart in order to see God? What is our heart? What is in our physical bodies? Our heart is something, isn't it? It is that which sustains our lives. It is that which pumps blood and oxygen throughout our bodies. It is that which keeps us on planet Earth, right? That's our physical heart. But have you ever had a feeling in your heart? It also seems to be a seat of emotion for us, doesn't it? Have you ever kind of felt like your heart was broken? Have you ever had a pain in your heart? Have you ever felt a joy in your heart, like your heart was just going to flutter right out of your chest? You were so happy. So not only is it that which sustains us physically, it is also a center or a seat, if you will, of emotional experience, of courage, of joy, of enthusiasm, of pain, and of sadness. Our hearts are a center and a source of something greater than we are. So to be pure in heart means to be true and clear about the source, that which sustains us. And what is the ultimate source? God. That from which we have all sprung. The source of all things, that which vibrates the cells in our bodies, that which breathes us. Clear about and true to the source is to be pure in spirit, is to be pure. Isn't that lovely? So we have to be clear about and true to the source. If we are clear about and true to the source, we'll see the source. We'll see God. We shall see with our spiritual perception. Because remember what did Emmett Fox told us? We're not talking about you're not going to see God like a vision of God in the chair with the long beard, and because that's not what God is. It might be what some of us were taught God is, but God is actually an infinite principle. So we can't see it in physical form in the same way we might see another person or a chair or a table. We don't see it in that sense. We see it with our spiritual eyes, with our spiritual vision, with our spiritual perception. And ironically, what this says is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. But in order to see God, we have to be able to be pure in heart. We have to see God to see God. Did you catch that? See, to be pure in heart is to see and know truth with clarity, right? And to be true to that. And so in order to see God, we have to see God. We have to be pure in heart in order to see God, which makes us pure in heart. Then it's a cycle. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, the spiritual journey right here. You got to be that which you seek. Even when it seems completely out of the realm of possibility. Even when we don't know how. Even when we're afraid. But if we are pure in heart, remember the heart is the seat of courage and joy and passion and compassion, wisdom, enthusiasm. If we see from our heartedness, if we see from the source, we see the source. Wow, that's kind of cool. So I want to tell you about a little experience I had that taught me a lesson about this. About 4 or 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to go on a boat trip with my brother and sister-in-law and some family members. They have a really nice boat, and we went up to the Canadian Gulf Islands. And they decided to anchor at this place called Octopus Island. I'm just along for the ride. I don't know anything about boats. I don't know. I can't, they're doing maps and planning all this. I'm just there for the ride. And they say, Greg, who's another brother who wasn't there, Greg said there's a really nice lake at the center of this island. I think we should hike up to the lake. Well, I'm not the biggest hike kind of person. I like to go for walks. Walks are good. And I said, well, how far is it? and they said, he says it's about a mile. And I said, elevation? That's always a good question to ask. About 500 feet, no big deal. I can do 500 feet, yeah. I can do a mile, not a bad deal at all. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll hike up to the lake with all y'all, and we'll go swimming. It'll be a lot of fun. Let's do that. So we get in the little boat, we go over to the beach, and we start walking up the trail, and I'm thinking it's been about a mile, and I see this little patch of blue through the trees, and I'm like, hallelujah, lake, right? Well, what I realize as we keep going is it's the other side of the island, that we were on this narrow part of the island, and that's salt water out there. We're not to the lake. In fact, we get down to the other beach, and we see an arrow that says lake and points to a whole other trail and says 2 miles. And I'm like, I already did my mile, people. And, but I'm thinking about the lake. I'm thinking about the lake. And I think the lake is sounding pretty good. So yeah, I got another 2 miles in me, no problem. So we start hiking, and it's pretty good, and you're with family, and it's fun. What they didn't say about the 500-foot elevation is it was all in the last quarter mile up, almost like this rocky thing that was like this. Like no kind of easy switchbacks for me. It was like this. Well, this is not my thing. And I'm having a hard time. And I'm kind of climbing up. You're literally, it's hands and feet. You can't walk up this. Even the people who are good at hiking can't walk up this, okay? And I'm hanging on, and the rocks are tumbling down. And I was having a very hard time. It was very hot. And I didn't know if I could make it. And my niece came up, and I love my niece. She's awesome. She was like 22 at the time. And she put her shoulder under my bum, and she just and she's saying, you can do it. I know you can do it. You can do it. And she's helping me, and she's supporting me, right? And I'm thinking, she's right. I can do it. I can do it. I can be there. I can be part of this experience, and I can get to the lake. And we were maybe 20 or so yards from the top, and she said, I'm going to give you a goal. And she scrambles around me, and literally, I'm serious, like in a few seconds practically, she scrambles to the top of this thing. And she stands up there, and she says, Auntie Marla, you're almost there. You can do it. And I'm like, really, God? But I'm looking up at her, and I'm thinking, yeah, I can do it. And I got myself up the rest of that little trail, and over the little lip was this amazing, beautiful lake. And there was a boulder, and huge boulder you could just almost see the glacier that had left it there. You know what I'm saying? And everybody else has been up there for half an hour. And they're all out on this boulder and diving in and out of the water and having a lovely time. And I was able to join in and dive into this clear, beautiful, cool lake and be refreshed and have an experience of the divine. Now, what does this have to do with blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God? Well, let me tell you, first of all, somebody said there's a lake in the middle of this island. Somebody told me there's a lake in the middle of this island. They haven't even ever been there. And I chose to believe them. I'd never seen this lake. I had no evidence there's a lake. I have no idea whether there's really a lake or not. But you know what? I was willing to learn from someone who had been there. I was willing to learn from someone who had had the experience. And I was willing to have their vision become my vision, their experience become my vision. I believed in it. And I knew that I wanted the experience of diving into that refreshing and rejuvenating lake. And I knew that it was going to take some activity and some effort on my part that wasn't necessarily what I might typically do. And yet, I saw the vision. Now, has anybody ever, actually, no, let me put it this way. Have you ever had a greater spiritual vision of the truth of God as your life? I think for most of us, there's something in us that's what we're doing here this morning, right? We show up at things like this because there's a yearning in us to know God more fully. There's a yearning in us to understand that something greater than we are more fully. And you know what? I stand up here on Sunday mornings and I tell you about it, and I tell you about it as best I can from the experience I have. And I go to teachers who've had greater experiences than I have had to hear them tell me about it so that I can get that vision. And so that I can step more fully into that and actually have something to say on Sunday mornings, right? But what I really want is a greater experience of the divine. And I study with teachers who have been there. They've been there. And they're willing to say, yeah, it's in the middle, it's about a mile hike. To them. Easy, 500 feet elevation, no big deal, you can do it. You can do it. And I begin the path. Now, I ran into some challenges. I thought I saw it. I thought I had God. I thought I was there. What? That's not it? Are you kidding? I thought it was going to be there. And I could just, that was the little easy hike over the flat part of the island, right? And then the climb. The climb got a little tougher, didn't it? Some things were asked of me that I might not necessarily believe that I have in me. Now I have to navigate the terrain that's actually going to get me to the greater experience. It's going to get me to what I was able to see with my spiritual vision. And not only that, the information keeps changing. Do you think about every time you get it? The information changes. And there's a sign, now there's a sign that says that's the trail to the lake. Now there's a sign that says that's the path to God. Now there's a sign that says this is the way to go. The information keeps changing, and then maybe there's a challenge, like suddenly there's a rock hill to climb up instead of some easy switchbacks. And I got to tell you, when you're halfway up that hill and you're going down, it's going to be as hard as getting up, and the rock is right there. The rock, like all I can see is the rock in front of me and the two rocks I'm holding on to, right? That's all I can see. But you know what kept me going? My spiritual vision. The lake. The cool cool, clear waters of life that were waiting for me at the top of the climb. And what helped me? My little niece giving me a edge up. Has anybody ever given you an edge up on your spiritual journey? Anybody ever said to you, you can do it? I'm here for you. Maybe you got a prayer partner. Maybe somebody here in this community. Maybe there's a teacher. Maybe you've been in a class where you connected with some special people, and they kind of give you a little nudge up in the bum when you start to drag. And they encourage you. And when you're getting to be the most helpless, maybe they run to the top of the hill for you, and they say to you, you can do it. It's right here. I believe in you. I believe in you. Now, I have to say, some of us don't have those people in our lives, do we? And if you're one of those who doesn't have somebody like that in your life, get one. You're in the right place to find that person, or even those people. Get a tribe, a group of people that supports you, who also understand about the lake on the other side of the hill and are willing to support you in getting there, are willing to navigate the changing terrain with you. Because I don't know about you, but I have doubts. I had some doubts about halfway up that little rock climb, right? About whether I could make it. And there are times in my life when I have doubts. Am I really on the right path? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Oh my God. What did I tell you? But when I can reconnect to my spiritual vision of something greater than I am, something that is supporting and lifting me every step of the way, something that is calling me to it, something that loves me and nurtures me and supports me, when I can anchor in my spiritual vision, when I can stay clear and true to God, I see what? God. And when I get all mucked up in the rocks that are right in front of me, the terrain that's right in front of me, the conditions and the situations, I get all distracted by that. And I lose my purity of heart. I must remain clear and true to the spiritual vision. And when I lose track of that, I ask for support. I do my spiritual practice, even when I don't feel like it. I surrender even more completely to that wisdom and to that mind of God. And what I'm talking about here is seeing as God sees. See, I'm here on the rocks, and the rocks are problems. What? That's not really even the truth, is it? The rocks are only problems in my mind. What they really are is handles and stepping stones to get up the side of the hill. They're not problems, they're help. They're only problems because I saw them as problems. But they really are stepping stones and handholds to get me to the lake, to that experience of God. So I have to begin to see as God sees. And what does God see? Truth, wisdom, clarity, joy. What does God see? Perfection and wholeness. That's all. And everything that might seem to be a barrier is actually something that is lifting me higher. Take the sacred breath with me. It's interesting, there are two proverbs that came to mind for me this week as I was thinking about this message. The first one is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinketh and a woman thinketh in her heart, so is she. Pure in heart, clarity, trueness, wisdom, grace, and joy. And the second proverb, keep your heart with diligence, for from the heart flow the issues of life. It's interesting because the King James Version uses that issues. We use issues in a real different way now, don't we? Well, I have issues. She has issues. But in the King James translation of the Bible, what that really meant was outflow, the issues of life, what issues from our experience from our hearts. But it is interesting because I think it is true. From our hearts flows the issues of life. I mean, if you believe you have issues, you have issues. If you believe your issues are stepping stones and handholds, then you have opportunities. And so be diligent in keeping your heart clear and true, for from our hearts flow the issues of our life, the outcomes of our life. Now, there actually is another little Bible verse that came to mind for me this week, because there is that little message that says you cannot see God and live. Remember that one? How does that tie in with the idea of blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God? But a little later it says you can't see God and live, but the promise is I could see God. But the key piece here is you cannot see God and live. And live. And by this I mean we cannot see spiritual truth and still be satisfied living in the old habits. The old habits, the old beliefs, the old ways of thinking must die and fade away into the nothingness from which they came when we see the spiritual truth. As we remain true and clear in our hearts to the oneness and the allness of all things, when we see that with conviction and clarity, all else fades away and dies into the nothingness from which it came. Are you ready to release the rocks and stones as problems and begin to embrace those as opportunities? Are you willing to see God in order to see God? Are you willing to cultivate your spiritual vision? Shall we practice just a little bit? So turning within, we take the sacred breath. And we recognize our essential oneness and unity with all things. We know that the mind and the heart of God are our minds, our hearts, right here and right now. We cannot be separated. One thing, one heart, one mind, one God, one presence. Right where we are. And so we rest in the notion, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the pure in heart. Is your heart pure? Is your heart clear and true to the power and the presence and the love of God from which you have sprung, and that which is living you even now? Is your heart clear and true to the principles of love, of grace, of wisdom, of order, of harmony? Is your heart clear and true to the essential oneness of all things and all people, all experiences? Is your heart clear and true? And if it is not, if as you examine your heart you find old false beliefs, rocks are bad, this is a challenge, this is a problem, this hurts, I invite you now to open your spiritual eyes to see with the eyes of God. And that these issues, these things, these conditions and circumstances are merely opportunities to support you on your way to the lake, on your way to the infinite experience of oneness, on the way to clarity and truth. And in the power of this spiritual vision, simply know, I can do it. I am it. I already am it. And simply give thanks for the opening and the wisdom, the opportunity, the beingness that has made itself known in a greater way than you have ever experienced before. Give thanks. And know that you leave this place with your spiritual eyes wide open, with your spiritual perception intact, always ready and willing to see and know the power and the presence and the love of God everywhere you go. And so I close this message with a grateful heart, calling it good and very good. And so it is. Amen.